2020. Wish everybody a happy new year and off to a great start. Appreciate your patience with us. You're recognized for up to 5 minutes, sir.
All right, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, esteemed members of this Bibb County Commission. I'm so glad you let me come and speak with you tonight about this issue. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. I want to tell you what's going on in our particular locale. I'm in Westfall Estates. I've been there since 1999. In that time, we've had, there's a strip of land just behind us in the middle of a subdivision. It's not hunting land, I guess it's agricultural. And what we have is we have people going back and they're shooting rifles, firearms of every kind, and they're not just shooting, they're shooting at my house. My house has been hit 6 times with rifle bullets. We've been pelleted with 22 shells coming down on my roof. We have had people shooting, I can't believe this, but somebody shooting blow darts at my house and had a blow dart in the side of the house. It's not just in the back, it's in the front. So we've got people that will indiscriminately do this. And of course, around the holidays, we have people that will do, celebratory gunfire and that kind of thing. The problem that I have is that a year and a half ago, I had a first cousin, and she was sick on Sunday, and she decided she was going to iron her clothes, and she stayed home from church. And a guy that was behind the house doing target practice shot through her house, through 3 walls, and into her heart and killed her. So this is very close to an issue with me. Now, I've given you pictures. All of you should have pictures of the land lot behind us. There's a tree line, and they hide behind those tree lines. You'll see there that we have bird feeders, and they shoot 22 bullets through that continuously. This is a dangerous situation. I can't walk in my backyard without the threat of somebody shooting me. Well, we have called the deputies out and on 2 different occasions, and they said that their hands were tied. They could not do anything about it. And so this last one, I had my grandson, and he was helping me with cutting the leaves under and that kind of thing. And while we were standing there, people started shooting from that tree line at us. When I called the sheriff's office, an officer came out and he gave me a case card. And it says on the top of it, vandalism. He said he couldn't do anything. And so we're sitting in a situation where we're in a firing zone. When I cried out to this guy, stop it, or I'll have to call the sheriff, it sounded like this guy had a bump stock on his rifle. I mean, hundreds of rounds up in the air, hitting our house, raining down on top of my house. This is a dangerous situation. If it were you, if it were your house, and the sheriff came and said, we can't do anything about it, I think it would be different. I think you would see things from a different perspective. And truly, I mean, I've overcome a lot. I had 4 strokes last year. And I want to live longer. And I don't want somebody taking me out because they want to shoot birds in my backyard or blow my windows out of my house. This is not right. We need something that has teeth, that our sheriff's deputies can go out and they can actually do something about it. We shouldn't be able to ever call 911 and say, people are shooting at me, and they say, we don't have a law that we can do anything with, or an ordinance. Now, when I was a kid, I was a police officer. Now I'm a doctor. But when I was a police officer in Macon, Georgia, we had laws. And those laws were on the book, and we could take them to court. You don't shoot at people with a rifle, a handgun, or a shotgun. You just don't do that. It's criminal, at the least, criminal negligence. That knowing that they can do something, though it might be legal, and they hurt somebody, which is not legal. And our city has a problem with this, not just in my neighborhood. There are a lot of neighborhoods like that. I thank you. I hope you'll look at the pictures, and that when you bring this to council committee, that you'll do something. Give them something they can do something with.
Dr. Powell, thank you very much for your time and your patience here tonight. We sympathize with your situation and appreciate you being here.
Thank you, sir.
Howard Gainey also wants to talk to us about hunting regulations. Mr. Gainey, thank you for being here, for your patience. You're recognized for up to 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Powell. That's a hard one to follow there. Mr. Mayor and committee members, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Howard Gainey, and my wife and I live at Pinnacle Point Subdivision and have for the past 18 and a half years. We're here this evening as concerned citizens, hoping to bring to your attention a potentially dangerous and concerning situation, even in our part of the world. This past October, we began hearing the sounds of high-powered rifles discharges within close proximity of our homes. I myself am an avid hunter. I have 2 deer in my freezer right now, but I would not shoot one in a neighbor's backyard. I enjoy the sport, but I would never presume it was safe to do so within such close proximity to residential neighborhoods. The neighborhoods change, they grow. There's new ones being added every day. I called the Department of Natural Resources to ask if they knew of hunters being this close to our homes, and they investigated it and finally determined that the hunters were within their rights to hunt on the land leased to them. We can see the deer stand in plain sight driving into our subdivision. I have a picture of that I wanted to submit if I could. I'll do that later.
Certainly.
This is the same street that our kids have played, where our grandchildren now play, where we walk or jog, enjoy meeting with our neighbors in the street to stop and chat or drive golf carts or walk to and from each other's homes. I'm here today to tell you all of that has stopped. It stopped when we realized there were guns pointed in our direction at any given time during hunting season, whether it be from someone walking in the woods behind our homes or sitting in the tree stand, which is visible from our entrance, that puts us in the crosshairs as we enter and exit our neighborhood. From October to January, hunters are allowed to be where they are, shooting weapons of their choice, because currently the law is on their side and they have rights. And we understand that. But I asked you here today, what about our rights? Who's looking after our rights to live in peace without fear and without worry that our homes, our cars, or even worse, ourselves could be in potential danger? Dr. Powell presented it very well. I don't want to be here a year from now using the death of my wife or one of my grandchildren as an example of a tragedy that could have been avoided. It is unfair that we are expected to be held hostage during the most beautiful time of the year when the weather starts to change and everyone enjoys being outside, but we can't. We're not here today to tell any hunter that they must stop hunting, just not this close to homes. We're asking that you put back on the books the very ordinances or laws that were overlooked or not renewed when the city and the county merged. And these laws should, at the very least, be amended to prevent and prohibit anyone from hunting or firing weapons within 1,000 yards to 1 mile in proximity to residential areas. The woodlands all around us are becoming more and more inhabited, and the laws need to change to protect the people from these types of dangers. If you leave here with anything today, please remember this. One of the most popular firearms that is used for deer hunting is a .30-06 rifle. It's got different grains. People use them all the time. I do too. All this information I'm about to give you came from 2 sources, Hornady Manufacturing and Sniper Magazine. I load my own bullets, so I'm very aware of this. And keep this into perspective as we talk. 1 mile is 1,760 yards, okay? A .30-06 bullet with its original 150 grain spire point bullet at 2,700 feet per second. That's a rifle. The .30-06 was certified for an extreme reach at a 45-degree angle fired at 4.75 miles. An effective fatal firing range of a .30-06 is 1,000 yards. Think about that. Average velocity, feet per second, of a 30-06 bullet. At 500 yards, a 30-06 bullet is traveling at 1,828 feet per second. That's moving. That'll hurt you. And I have this you can have as well. Members of this council, as you are aware, change is constant. Within 300 to 500 feet of our subdivision, there are new developments going up all around us with more people. A new public shopping center is going in, all within a mile from these new communities. These changes with the oversight of firearms needs to be addressed and done very quickly before these communities grow and expand even more. Again, all of this within 300 to 500 yards of this hunting property. I said feet earlier, it's yards. Right. With all due respect, council members, this is your responsibility to make sure the laws are in place to protect the citizens of Macon and Bibb County. And we as a community are asking for help.
Thank you, Mr. Gainey. We appreciate that. Your time has expired, sir. If you've got just another second or two to
I do.
to wrap
One
up.
more comment and I'll be done.
Yes, sir.
Our proposal would be a minimum of 500 yards for anything non-rifle. That's related shotguns, compound bows, crossbows. All rifles, a minimum of 1,000 yards to 1 mile from any home or subdivision. And with that, I'll close.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gainey. We appreciate you being here. Thank you for that information as well.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jim Majinski. Mr. Majinski, thank you for your patience and for being here with us. I understand you want to talk to us about hunting regulations as well, sir.
Same thing, Your Honor, Mayor. And Council, my name is Jim Majewski, and I live at 132 Pinnacle Point Drive. I don't have quite the same experience that the good doctors had, thank God. But the reason for me being here tonight is to make the council aware of an extremely dangerous situation that exists in our community. Approximately 2.5 months ago, several deer hunters leased property in the Macon-Bibb County for the purpose of hunting. They proceeded to set up a deer stand on a natural gas and petroleum pipeline easement and about 300 feet from our housing development, a development where I live. Thus, in the morning and during the day and in the evening, those of us that live in a normal, quiet neighborhood suddenly were exposed to multiple high-powered gunshots. Investigating the gunshots, I found the hunters were hunting deer with high-powered guns that can kill a deer probably at 1,000 yards. That's like 10 football fields put end to end. And then to my amazement, I found that they were perfectly legal. I contacted DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, the Sheriff's Department, and found out that there was no law on the books or ordinances preventing them from hunting the deer that they were hunting. It's really, we have been fortunate enough not to experience the same thing the good doctors experience, but it's only a matter of time when they're shooting 4 or 5 times. And anybody I know that's a decent hunter, one shot, and if they can't hit something within 1 shot, then you don't shoot 4 or 5 times. I was told, the sheriff went out there and talked to them, and they said that it's okay because they're shooting into the dirt. The dirt is where this pipeline, both the pipeline that feeds, and the pipeline happens to feed Atlanta Airport with gasoline and aviation fuel, and there's a natural gas line there as well. Pipeline's been in there 30 years. When I talked to the pipeline people, they said they can tell us about where the pipeline is, but not exactly, within a couple of feet. And over that period of time, it wouldn't be unusual at all for that pipe to come closer to the surface of the earth. Anyway, and it's also interesting that even with a 22, now Howard gave you some examples of high-powered rifles, but even with a 22, just something you can buy at Walmart, can travel almost a mile and be lethal at a mile. I understand that the same member that, I know that there's a thing on the council agenda talking about 250 feet. 250 feet it's not even a concern in my mind. I mean, we need to talk about something in thousands of yards to be in a safe distance. Nobody should be allowed to set up a deer stand or a hunting situation in a subdivision where we live. Anyway, if the council would take this into consideration, I would deeply, deeply appreciate it, as is the citizens of Macon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Majeski. We appreciate it. And Ellen Majeski, do you wish to make additional comments?
I would just like to pass and give my time to Dr. Dale because he wasn't certain he could be here on time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Majeski. We appreciate it. Dr. Ronald Powell? I'm sorry, okay.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak a few minutes to you about my neighborhood. I live in this neighborhood. My wife and I moved there about 16 years ago, and this is at Pinnacle Port, where my neighbors who have already spoken live. And I moved there because of the beauty, and I moved there because of the tranquility. We moved away, and we had the opportunity to come back to Macon. I'm a cancer surgeon. I didn't look at another neighborhood because I love the beauty and tranquility of that house. The woods in the area that the hunters are hunting on are where my son and his neighbors and his friends played in the woods and enjoyed that space and that opportunity. And right now, I have neighbors that can't even let their grandchildren out in their backyard because someone's out there shooting guns, high-power guns that are very lethal. And as a surgeon, I see what these guns can do to people, and it is not a pretty sight. My wife was walking our dogs on the road, on a public road the other day, and the deer stand not far being away. 4 shots rang out. The 2 dogs broke free from her leash and ran. My wife ducked and hit the ground because she was afraid she was being shot at. And this is a situation we are dealing with in our neighborhood. And this could be anybody in here's neighborhood. If you've got land, if you've got trees, and if you've got deer walking through your yard, you too could be subject to people coming in your backyard and shooting high-power rifles. And believe me, there's an incredible number of deer hunters that shoot themselves and shoot their buddies on a yearly basis, so they're not that great of shots. And you certainly don't want them hanging out in your neighborhood or my neighborhood. And I would really encourage you to expand that 250 feet, which I could probably kill somebody with a pellet gun, let alone a high-power rifle, to at least 1,000 yards, if not more. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doctor. We've got Ms. Majeski's name. Would you please give us your name and,
Yes,
and address so that we could write it down?
Absolutely. My name is Dr. Paul Dale,
D-A-L-E?
D-A-L-E,
Very good, Dr.
and my address is 211 Pinnacle Court,
211 Pinnacle Court. Very good.
Macon 31216.
Thank you, Dr.
for
Dale.
your time.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Ronald Powell. Somebody signed up for you twice. Well, this is Sheila Powell. Just here in support. Okay. Jimmy Corbett. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it, and you're recognized for up to 5 minutes, sir.
And thank you, County Commissioners. I also live in Pinnacle Point neighborhood for 20 years. I've enjoyed living there. It's very peaceful, and we appreciate Joe Allen and his oversight for us there. But in October, I also heard a lot of shooting. I didn't know where it was coming from until I was told that there are some deer stands. Actually, there are 2 deer stands there. And so this morning, I want to just be sure I was being accurate when I came here today. The closest house that I know to one of those deer stands is 177 yards. And mine is 217 yards. And so we're well in range of some danger happening. And I plead with the commissioners, extend that length before people can shoot a rifle that can reach a home. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here and appreciate the information. Karen Dale. Ms. Dale, thank you for being here. You're recognized for up to 5 minutes.
Sorry. I'm just here. I was one of the ones walking. I have 5 dogs, and I walk the entrance into our home every single day. That's how I got my exercise. I take 2 dogs at a time, next two, and then one other one. And I was the one that hit the floor whenever hit the ground when I heard the gunshots ring out. And these gunshots will start early in the morning. I've heard them as early as 8:15. I've heard them as late as 6 o'clock. And, you know, the safety of our neighbors, and like my husband was saying, we have lived in 3 houses in that same neighborhood in the last 20 years. Didn't even look anywhere else. We used to live in Riverly Downs, never even looked over there. We came back to the lake because we always felt safe. All of our neighbors are generally older people. We don't have very many young people, younger I should say. But there is a new family that moved in at the top of one of the cul-de-sacs that is actually one of the houses that is probably one of the closest houses to where these deer stands are. And she is a principal at Weaver. And I don't think she's here tonight, but she and her husband moved in a little bit before Christmas. They have 2 little boys, ages 6 and 8. And when I was talking to her the other day, she informed me that they were sitting out right before Christmas. I think it was the Sunday before Christmas, and the boys were playing in their backyard, and she heard gunfire. And she grabbed her 2 little boys and brought them into the home. Now, these are 2 little boys that I've seen running. We have a big, sort of like an open air hill right across from her house. And they've been running, playing. You know, you don't ever see kids outside playing anymore. And I thought to myself immediately, wow, this is pretty bad that this lady can't have her 2, and they're the only children pretty much, except from other people's grandchildren that are in our neighborhood. But I'm thinking, this is the principal at Weaver. She's moved into our neighborhood. I don't know what part of Macon she lived in before, but she has to bring her children in from being outside playing on a beautiful day because there's gunfire going off. And she asked me, she said, does this happen all the time? And I said, no, ma'am. No, this is never, and I told her, we lived here almost 20 years, never, ever happened before. And I walk my dogs up and down that hill. I actually bought myself an orange hunter vest to wear because I am scared for my life. Just trying to live everyday life, get exercise, that kind of thing. It's a beautiful neighborhood. We have great neighbors. Everybody pretty much knows each other. You know, we all get along. And yet these hunters' rights have infringed on our activities of daily living. And we really want the law changed. And we appreciate anything anyone could do to help us get that.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Dale.
you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Dottie Scrimshire also wants to express her concern. Dottie Scrimshire? Thank you for being here, Ms. Scrimshire. You're recognized for up to 5 minutes.
Well, I won't talk 5 minutes because they've already covered most of it. I live at Pinnacle Point too. But I just think our commissioners can help us in this problem, because just because something's a law does not mean that it's right and that it shouldn't be changed. And that's what we really need to do, is to change this law, that people can hunt in such close proximity to these homes, that we pay a lot of taxes, and our homes are being devalued actually, because people that come there to look at our homes, if we're got them for sale, and they know that there's a hunting area right there in the midst of our neighborhood, I'm sure that they're going back off from it. And I just think the law needs to be changed. And I know these hunters will say, well, we've got a right, it's not against the law. But that doesn't, just because it's not against the law doesn't make it right and prudent for us to have it, that there's not more restrictions for our neighborhoods. The city has restrictions. You can't hunt in the city. Well, the city has moved out to the suburbs. And so I think that law, can be extended. And we just beg for y'all's help as much as you can to help us with this, because we have a beautiful neighborhood, and y'all are all welcome to come out to see us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Scrimshire. I appreciate it. And Dean Smith. Also wants to talk to us about hunting regulations. Ms. Smith, you're recognized for up to 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to talk. My wife and I, we live at 241 Shoreline Way, which is Treetop Subdivision. So we back up next to all these good folks from Pinnacle Point. We have the same issue that they have. We're hearing the gunshots this hunting season. And, like most of these folks, we own guns and have no issues with hunters. But In this close proximity to this neighborhood, it's very concerning. This is one of the newer neighborhoods in town. It's recently redeveloped, and there are younger families and children in the neighborhood, and we are quite concerned about it. We do get out a lot and walk, and would appreciate any assistance the commissioners could give us in changing this law and making the distance for discharging firearms greater. Something up close to a mile would seem to be appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We appreciate you being here. That's all of the people that have signed up to talk about that. Commissioner Allen, upon a personal privilege.
Please.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, most of these people are here because I asked them to come, due to the fact that one gentleman who's spoken had gone down to a deer stand. He had not gone to the deer stand, someone else had, but our deputies, some of our deputies went out, and instead of, when you get a ticket, you're actually arrested by law, but they gave him a ticket to go to court. And when I heard about it in Superior Court with Judge Colvin, I went down there with him, and some of the deputies are the ones that are doing the shooting, and they're sending other deputies out there to protect the deputies that are doing the shooting. Now, I have an issue with that. I notified Sheriff Davis about it, talked to him about it, and it's the way the law is written, as they've all spoken about. But just this past Saturday, I was in Tennessee, and there was a hunter up there. There was two of them, I think. Shot and killed a 32 or 33-year-old man and his 8-year-old daughter because they thought they were deer. And they were out there just walking. That can happen in Macon, Georgia. It happens in Sub-South out there in Miss Lucas's district because she knows this happened out off of Griffin Road. It continues to happen out there. The people have no choice but to try to hide. It happens not just at Pinnacle Point, at Lake Tobesofsky. It happens at other locations. Now it's happening close to Barrington, where people are hunting because we're overcrowded with deer. But I asked in the first resolution I sent down that they use buckshot or they use load shot. The attorney for us at the time said the state court solicitor would not go along with it. As you saw, she was here earlier today, and she don't see why we should do anything. Well, we're the ones that make the laws. We're the ones that can do things for Bibb County. Macon had an ordinance where you could not shoot like that. And when they consolidated Macon and Bibb County, it was my understanding that most of those ordinances would also come to the unincorporated area, because the unincorporated area is growing so fast. More people are moving out there, but if you want to run people away, you don't do nothing about this. You've already heard what these individuals do for a living. Most of them, a lot of them live at Lake Tobesofsky, where the tax value they pay. All right, we're toward where Scotty lives. Where the doctor lived out there. Same thing occurred with his house, and he's getting shot on. They had a bullet that was shot up in the air, and it fell down, hit on a man's head out that way. So there's a lot of other people out there that could not be here tonight, and they would exactly tell you the same thing. We have got to do our job, and if it's going to court to get this law changed, or send it to the legislature to find out what's going on, because it's not just happening here in Macon, Georgia. It's happening in the state of Georgia. It's happening in Tennessee. It's happening in other locations, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Jones, do you have a point of personal privilege?
Yes, sir. On the same topic, and I think we got to do something about it. We got to do something right away. I had a conversation with Sheriff Davis recently. He agreed something's got to be done. I'd like to ask Mr. Gainey, I think it was, maybe he can tell me, I think you said 1,000 yards to 1 mile, which will be about 1,760 yards. What's the safe distance? Can you tell me that?
Minimum of 1,000 yards, but I would if you could.
1,000 yards safe enough.
Well, let's don't get into a question and answer session. At
Well,
this point,
just one. That's a point of personal privilege. Let him answer.
Yeah. But that only goes so far.
Let me finish. 1,000 yards. So it needs to be more than 1,000 yards to be safe.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Got Commissioner Schlesinger, your light on as well?
Yeah, this is really not the time or the place to debate this, but we had this problem in District 2. It was off the Gray Highway, just past Walmart there, and DNR had said, it's okay to hunt this land. We basically found out that and relied upon the law that you cannot discharge a weapon in Macon Bibb County. And I just need a clarification, Duke, on what that law is. But the sheriff's office, went in there, they stopped it, they talked to DNR, you can't do this. But it just seems to me that it's just as simple as making the change from city of Macon to Macon Bibb County, and that's what I thought. I thought that was carried over during consolidation. At least that's what I was told. But we took care of it. Lickety split, tell you the truth, and I think we can do that in this instance too.
Very good. We got one more. Commissioner Watkins, do you have a point of personal privilege about this as well, sir?
Commissioner Allen answered one of my questions. My other, though, how long is this a fairly new occurrence? Is this was the first season this happened, or has this been going on for many years? First season. And I heard there was a pending court case. Am I assuming we know who's doing this? Is inside of just a few?
What happened is that because I went out there, I confronted the hunters. I got DNR out there, I got the sheriff out there, and I was considered a nuisance, so they have a restraining order against me for blowing my horn. And I don't understand the restraining order. I blow a horn and they've got a gun, but the restraining order is against me. So that's what the court, that's the system. The other thing also, I did check with the DNR and so on, and if you're within 50 yards of a public highway, you can't shoot. Well, 50 yards is 150 feet. So if they're right alongside the highway shooting, they can stop them. But the sheriff, when I talked to Sheriff Davis about it, he said there was nothing he could do about it.
Thank you, Mr. Brzezinski. I appreciate that. That answer your question, Commissioner? I sound like we're going to have an interesting committee meeting next week. Commissioner Jones, you got another thought that you wanted to share with us?
Mr. Chairman, as I recall from the meetings of the task force that put together the consolidated government, when it came to guns, they deferred to what the county, they went to the least restrictive